Today at The Boot Guy, we are going to be covering 5 tips that I hope will help you beat the cold. Even if you're a seasoned guy who's worked outdoors his whole life, just think of this as kind of a refresher course. Kind of just reminding you how some of the newer materials and some of the newer items out there that are built for cold weather comfort can really help if you add them into your collection. Just 5 tips to help you beat the cold. So when it comes to cold weather out there and it comes to keeping warm, the one thing that we seem to always forget is just what it takes to be warm. We really take for granted this whole interior thing that we have of this upper body, this heart that's constantly beating, that never stops beating. We forget that this thing is a heat machine. So if we can divert a lot of heat that is coming off our heart and kind of project it around our bodies, it's much easier to be warmer in extreme cold temperatures. So we're going to start here. There's 5 things that I'm going to cover in this video, 5 parts of the bodies, and 5 things that are going to help you beat the cold. So number 5, we're going to start up here at the neck. Now I understand not everybody has one of these big hairy things coming off their face. And to be completely honest with you, it really doesn't help that much in extreme cold. I still got to cover up my neck. So a few things that you can do is you can just put a scarf around your neck. Now my personal opinion about scarves and shamags and things like that guys wear in the wintertime is you're really looking for an accident to happen. You've got parts hanging off you, you got little dangling things. You're just looking for that to either get caught in the machine or caught somewhere else and kind of just pull you to your own death. So in my personal opinion, what I gotta say, the best thing around your neck is gonna be a neck gaiter. Neck gaiters are available from several different manufacturers out there. And the best kind that you can get is going to be made from fleece. Now it doesn't have to be a high-end fleece. It doesn't have to cost you 30 or 40 bucks, just as long as it's made from fleece. Recently, you'll see a lot of neck gaiters that are made from polypropylene. Now, polypropylene is a great material, but not a lot of guys can wear it. A lot of guys have some problems with polypropylene retaining odor and actually causing ingrown hairs because of the way the polypropylene moves when it's really tight to the skin. So my number 4 tip comes in at the top of the head itself. Keeping this thing covered up is really important when it's really cold outside. Now I understand a lot of guys, they're kind of self-conscious about their hair and they kind of don't cover up their heads. Now trapping that heat, and this is where it all comes down to, if you're covering your neck and you're covering your head, you are actually trapping the heat because heat rises. So as that heat rises off your chest, remember that beating heart, your heart never stops beating, and the more you work, the faster you work, the faster your heart goes, the more heat it generates. So when that heart's beating and you're sending all that heat up, if you can trap that along the way, whether it be your neck and your head, well, you got it made. So when it comes to winter hats, you're going to notice when you walk into major stores, you're going to see 2 materials that are really prevalent. You're going to see wool and you're going to see acrylic. Now, in my personal opinion, the newer wool hats, yes, they're very nice. And some of them are going to run you a pretty penny. Now, most of the time, they're going to be made out of cashmere and virgin sheep's wool and stuff like that, and that's really good stuff. Now, it's not necessary. It's not the most necessary thing to have unless you really like the touch and feel of it. So when it comes to wool, the one thing you do want to avoid is really cheap wool. So if you see like a wool watch cap that's running in the $10 range that's made on a military spec and it's pretty scratchy, that's not the best hat for everybody. Very few guys can actually wear the wool watch cap, the government, the DOD issued watch cap. But if you can wear it, you're gonna get yourself a very good hat if you can pull off that type of wool. Now when it comes to acrylic, there's a lot of things that you see going on in acrylic today, especially when it comes to buying acrylic stuff that's either for hunting or they're really trying to tell you that this is the warmest hat out there. So they'll start layering layers of acrylic on top of each other, creating this really big bulky hat. It's not necessary unless you're from somewhere and you really can't take the cold. If you're from the southern states or if you're even from south of the border and you're up in the Midwest working, I can understand that cold is really intense, especially here in the Midwest in the Chicago area where we got the lake and we get that lake effect cold that just comes off there. That's some pretty intense stuff. So grabbing one of those thick hats, that might actually seem like it's a really good option. And it's not. What happens with acrylic is it starts to pull too much moisture away from your head and it gets you really dry, and that first cold, really cold, bone-chilling breeze just shoots right through that and it cools you down. Now, cooling down in cold weather sometimes is important, but cooling down should really be more of cooling down the core and not cooling down these parts up here, your head and your neck. So in my opinion, when it comes to acrylic, what you want to have is a double layer acrylic. It doesn't need to be the thickest stuff. Your basic watch cap, your basic Jeep cap, and just your basic beanie cap is something you want to have in the winter months. It's going to give you enough coverage. It's going to keep you warm enough. Now, if you got to wear a hard hat, you want to avoid an acrylic hat that has a fold over. The basic watch cap, the old-fashioned knit hat, you want to avoid it. You want to get yourself what we commonly call a beanie cap. So it's a single layer around so your hard hat fits over and it can ratchet down nicely around it. Now, my number 3 tip is the hands, and you got to remember your hands are important. Your hands make you money, and the more you understand about how to keep your hands warm, the warmer they're going to be. So your hands and your feet are your 2 furthest points on your body. So your blood is pumped from your heart all the way to the tips of your fingers and then has to return to your heart again. Now, keeping these warm for some people who have poor circulation is a real issue. Most of the time when people have poor circulation, what they're going to do is they're going to buy big, lofty, ski type gloves thinking it's going to keep them warm, and it really doesn't happen like that. What you want to do is you want to help the circulation. You want to wear something that's a little bit tighter to the hand, but flexes. Not like leather where it fits to your hand and it doesn't move, but you want to have something that's got some polypropylene. You want to have something that's got some wool. You want to have something that's got acrylic built in and also has other key points that are sewn in, like a leather palm and leather fingers, just so you can work in it, but you want it to fit if you've got the bad circulation. Now, if you're grabbing a bunch of tools or if you're holding a sign in the wintertime, what you got to remember is whatever you grab and hold when it's cold is going to be cold itself. And you're going to get this thing that's called transference. Transference is the transferring of cold to the next layer that is gripping onto the material. So if the pole is cold, it's going to transfer the cold to your hand. Now, this is a situation where big lofty gloves really come in handy, and you probably want to get something that is big and lofty. Now, if you're grabbing cold stuff and it is a sign and this scenario reigns true for you, avoid gloves. Get yourself some mittens. If you can keep your fingers together as you grab this cold thing, you're going to create a hot pocket, a warming channel inside there around your hand, and transference is going to be a very, very slow process. You'll probably never even feel the cold pole that you're holding. Now, if you got to grab screws and you got to work with hammers and drills and stuff in the cold, you're going to want tighter fitting acrylic gloves with slip resistant palms and just slip resistant other parts of the glove. Now we come to the number 2 section, and that is the feet. Now, a lot of guys overlook the fact that they have to buy good socks in order to work, especially in the colder months. I see a lot of guys that try to get through with simple cotton 6-pack socks. You know, you get 6 pairs for $3, that type of stuff. That's not the best thing to wear in the wintertime, because remember, most of that stuff's going to be made from cotton, and the old saying, cotton kills, really rings true in the colder months. See, what cotton does is it holds all your moisture. So even if you've got on an 800-gram insulated boot and you got cotton socks, you're going to get cold. The insulation isn't going to work because now your circulation is sitting inside a very wet mess, and you're sending mixed signals to your body. So the best thing you can do in the wintertime is have polypropylene and wool socks on your feet. Now, there are many, many calibers to wool socks, and there's many calibers to polypropylene. So if it's something you've never done before, you might want to be interested in getting yourself a starter pack. You can find a lot of companies out there that sell them together, where you get a liner and a wool sock. And you gotta make sure you're buying wool socks. There's a lot of stuff on the market today that looks like wool socks. They look like winter socks, and you think, well, maybe they are winter socks. but you got to read the fiber content, and you want to have at least 25 to 50% wool for something that's kind of in the mediocre price range. Stuff that breaks the $20 mark and goes up into the $30 mark, you want at least 65% wool, and you want that wool to be at least merino wool, so you're going to have a nice, softer, long-wearing sock. Now, one of the other things about socks is you got to make sure they fit. You got to understand your shoe size, because most of the time people buy socks just by buying socks. They just grab them off the shelf and they throw them in the cart. But you really got to know what size shoe you wear, because it really helps when it comes to high-end wool socks, and it just really helps when you're buying socks in general. So remember to flip the sock over, look for the size chart, and make sure that that sock, that individual sock that you have in your hand, fits your foot size, and it all works out for you. Now, my number one thing, and this is you probably knew this one was coming, it's the boots. It's understanding boots. Now, there is a thing out there that guys believe that steel toe gets colder in the wintertime, and so they run out for their winter boots and they start buying composite, thinking that the plastic is going to be less cold than the steel. Well, the science behind all this is, yes, you know, if you had both materials sitting out in front of you and you were taking infrared temperature readings out there, the steel will be colder because it's a harder, denser material, and it is going to radiate more cold. But when it comes to boots, those hard toes are actually put in the boot behind layers of insulation and layers of leather. So what you're doing is you're heating up the inside of the boot. Now, when you heat up the inside of the boot, if your toes are right on top of the steel toe or right on top of your composition toe, no matter which material it is, you're still going to get cold because you don't have circulation going on. Just like your hands, just like wearing mittens, your shoes in the wintertime should be a little bit bigger, a half size bigger, to incorporate polypropylene liners, to incorporate wool socks, and to create a pocket of hot air that your body is generating by itself. Now remember, keeping your feet warm is really tricky, because when you think about the heart and you think about the distance from your heart to your feet, that's a long way for hot blood to travel down to your feet. Now your body's always going to be one solid temperature all the way through, because that's how we work as humans. But it's getting that hot blood to go through your legs, down all the way into your feet, warm up the blood down there, warm up the muscles, warm up the capillaries, and send it back up. So if there are parts of your body that aren't covered up, that isn't properly insulated, your body's got to work harder. If you can have on proper socks and your proper insulated boots, you're going to be warm. Now, what's a good amount of insulation? Well, that's really about you understanding winter, about you understanding cold weather, and you. Now, if it's your first rodeo and this is your first year out there in the cold, well, you might as well just go high. If you've never been out in the cold before, and if you're almost afraid of cold, I see a lot of guys who are working outside for the first time in years, and they're kind of afraid of it because they understand that that's going to be 10 to 12 hours outside with no way of getting warm. So with them being afraid of it, they run out and they buy the heaviest insulated boot out there. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I don't think it's the best thing in the world. But I think it's better to have a good understanding of who you are and just how cold it's really going to get. Now, I understand there's no way to predict the weather. I mean, we could have a mild winter, we could have a crazy cold and wet and snowy winter. But just being prepared and just having the right gear in order to get out there and work is really important. So what is my favorite insulation out there? Well, I have to say, for a Midwest winter here in Chicago or up in Wisconsin, 600 grams is probably, in my opinion, the best amount of insulation to have, given the fact that you understand what you need for socks and liners, and the fact that socks and liners come in different thicknesses to hold on to different amounts of heat. Your boot is going to perform phenomenally with 600 grams of insulate, but you insulating your body and buying your boots the right size is something that you got to be aware of. So that was 5 tips in order to beat the cold. Hey, if you got something to add to this conversation, if you got something to say you think I missed out, or if you know of products that you think guys should really be looking at in order to keep themselves warm for this winter season, please comment below in the comments box. Hey, if you're interested in seeing some of the other videos that I produced for keeping warm in the wintertime, I've got a hat video out there, I got a vest video out there, I even have a great winter bibs video out there. You can always check those out down in the description box or just by searching in my YouTube channel. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please hit that subscribe button below and also hit the like button if you don't mind. Hey, if you're about to head out to pick up some winter gear and you just got a few questions about stuff before you head out there, whether it be about long johns or whether it just be about neck gaiters, hats, and gloves and stuff like that, and you're just unsure about it, remember, you can always shoot me over an email. All right, until the next time, I'm the Boot Guy talking about winter gear again. Thanks a lot for watching.